And good evening, everybody. This is Ray Hanania, and welcome to the Ray Hanania Radio Show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, the leading English language newspaper in the Gulf region and the Middle East. It's Thursday, November 14, 2024, and this is Season 4, Episode 14. This week here on the Ray Hanania Radio Show, we discuss the issue of what we expect President-elect Donald Trump to do when he takes office in January. What will his approach be to the Middle East, Israel, and Palestine? He has started to nominate individuals to serve in his cabinet, and not unexpectedly, many of them are very pro-Israel, as they were during the first 4 years when he was in office, beginning in 2017. What can we expect, though, from Trump 2.0? And I'll just remind you that in the first term, his cabinet turned over in a very fast revolving door fashion. So whoever gets appointed to the cabinet now, will they actually remain in the cabinet in the future? We don't know. My first guest is pre-taped. It's Yossi Mekelberg. Yossi is a senior consulting fellow at the Middle East and North Africa program at the Royal Institute of International Affairs at Chatham House. He is a visiting professor at the University of Roehampton and a columnist with Arab News, a colleague of mine. He's going to discuss what he expects from the Trump administration for the Middle East. Afterwards, we'll take a break after his interview. But I want to talk to you. We'll open the phone lines at 248-557-3300 to talk to you about Jill Stein. Were you satisfied or disappointed by the Arab turnout in Michigan and the country? It looked like Trump got almost 50% of the Arab vote. Were you surprised by that? And the other remaining 50% was divided between Harris and Jill Stein. Jill Stein, I had hoped, would get 5% of the vote in the country. She never came close, unfortunately. Were you disappointed? What did you expect? 248-557-3300. The Ray Hanania Radio Show is broadcast live every Thursday here at WNZK AM 690 Radio at 5 p.m. and rebroadcast on Mondays at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690. It's also available online at arabnews.com/Ray Radio Show and on Facebook.com/Arab News. You can get more information on me at arabnews.com and on my personal website at rayhanania.com. So I tell you what, let's take our first break, and when we come back, I will set up the tape and play that interview with Yossi Mekelberg, who is an Israeli. And I think you're going to be interested with his observations of what he expects Trump to do and not do, and what he believes is the path toward peace between Palestinians and Israelis. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com. News that matters to you.
Hey, Michigan, let's think beyond the sink and learn where the water your family drinks every day comes from. Private wells and public water supplies allow homes across Michigan to draw water from different sources, like lakes, rivers, and groundwater. Tap into the facts about your home's water source and learn about your home's water quality to protect your family's health. Visit michigan.gov/care for MI drinking water. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
And welcome back, everybody. It's Ray Hanania here at the Ray Hanania Radio Show. We're going to play a pre-taped interview I did with Yossi Mekelberg, who is a senior consulting fellow at the Middle East and North Africa program at the Royal Institute of International Affairs at Chatham House. He's Israeli, and he's a visiting professor at the University of Roehampton, and he's also a colleague of mine, a columnist with Arab News. I think he has some interesting insights. So let's go ahead and roll that tape. Enjoy this, and when he's done, we'll take a break, and then we'll open it up for calls to see what you think, and also talk a little bit about Jill Stein and how well or bad she did in the election. I was a little disappointed, and I wonder if the disappointment is in her with Jill Stein, or is it in the Arab American community, which often is very emotional. We don't think straight sometimes. We let our emotions guide us, and it is an emotional world today. We see our relatives and friends and people that we know or we've known about being killed by the Israelis with impunity and nothing being done. But emotion doesn't help them. Strategy does. Being smart does. And that's what we got to do. So let me roll this interview, and then when it's done, we'll come back, take a break, and we'll take your phone calls at 248-557-3300. All right. I want to welcome my guest today, Yossi Mekelberg. He's a senior consulting fellow at the Middle East and North Africa program at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House. He is a visiting professor at the University of Roehampton and, of course, a columnist with Arab News. Yossi, it's always a pleasure to have you on our radio show here in Michigan, talking about politics and international affairs.
It is a pleasure. Thank you, Ray, for hosting me again.
So now we have Donald Trump 2.0. I think in the Middle East they're calling him Abu Ivanka, hoping that maybe he'll become more pro-Arab. I don't know. But tell us, what do you think? What do you expect? What do you expect is going to happen when he is sworn in January?
I think with Donald Trump, the less you expect, the less you're disappointed. But I mean, you see, I'm right now in Brussels and having all sorts of meetings, and I think the key word is everyone says that Donald Trump is unpredictable. So,
right.
which is another way to say we don't know.
Right.
But it's not enough to say I just don't know. You have to look at some early signs, or look at his first 4 years. But because he's one that can always surprise you. He moved from to one thing to another. Our best indication right now is a kind of the appointment, and they're coming, thick and fast.
Yes.
Of some senior position, and you try kind of to make sense out of this, and why, for instance, a Fox News presenter is becoming the Secretary of Defense. You also, one of the things you see that, Donald Trump is one of the things that he's very quick to pick up a fight with someone, but he's very quick also to put it aside and appoint people that he had a big fight, like, J.D. Vance or
Marco Rubio.
Yeah, and now is possibly Secretary of State. So I think he both rewards the loyalist, but also people that he fell out, but then came back into the fold. I think it's interesting when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, is some of the appointments. Again, appointing for the role of ambassador in Israel. UN. Someone that,
right.
In
Israel. Right.
Yeah, someone that is, again, similar to David Friedman in the first term, very close to the settlement movement. The appointment of the the ambassador to the US, someone that is hawkish and close to Israel. All in all, on the one side is Donald Trump talking about we can make peace almost instantly, 24 hours with Ukraine. You know, he knows how to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and so on and so forth. On the other hand, he appoints some of the most hawkish figures into key position. So is it one of his ideas how to confuse us, or there is some logic in this madness?
I want to attack. I want to ask you about the his being unpredictable can be a good thing. But before I get into that, I want to just go over a couple. I mean, okay, so he appoints Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel, very hawkish, very similar to Friedman. What's the difference though between Mike Huckabee and the current ambassador that we have now? Is it the tenor and the tone, but the policies are the same, right? Isn't that really the difference that we're seeing? Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, yeah, he was on Fox and Friends, but the guy was a veteran for I don't know how many years, well decorated, you know, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and Elise Stefanik, definitely not somebody that likes Arabs and the Middle East, but has a very strong commitment, you know, as a New York congresswoman to support Israel. She's going to be the UN ambassador. What's the difference between Elise Stefanik, the UN ambassador, and Linda, you know, the current ambassador now at the UN? The policies are the same, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the tone sometimes makes a difference, but at the end of the day, Joe Biden didn't stop the war in Israel or visit Israel a few days. Things. I think you're right, Ray, in saying, you know, if Biden had an opportunity now for more than 13 months to stop the war in Gaza, to reach a deal, help to reach a deal that a ceasefire and release of the hostages. So he said the right thing. He said Blinken, the Secretary of State, to do maybe the right thing, but still supply all the weapons that Israel requires to keep doing what he does in Gaza, and the killing continues and there is no ceasefire. So maybe we should just assume, and this is one of the things we can, it doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats, we get more of the same. I think there was some hope that with Harris we'll get something different. Not diametrically opposite to Biden, but, you know, a Democrat 2.0, which will actually push Israel for a ceasefire in Lebanon, maybe start talking seriously about resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But right now, probably we are not going to see that. But the difference, I say something, is while with a Democratic administration, at least they know what's right, even if they don't do that. Right. I fear that with the Republicans, they legitimize the wrong things to do, which mean have a long-lasting impact. But probably this is pushing a bit even this kind of difference between them.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, but I'm thinking, you know, even if, you know, it was a Democrat that provided the funding and the arms to Israel and rather than the leadership to say, look, Israel, what Hamas did was terrible. Let's get Hamas the right way. They just gave them all the money and the weapons and 42,000. And we use the number that I think, I'm not even sure if it's accurate, but 42,000 people are killed in response to 1,200 people getting killed. What's the difference? Nobody was killed when Trump was president. He didn't fund a war, you know, that killed Palestinians. To me, it sounds like the only difference here is the same policy, but a different tenor. One is more enthusiastic about imposing it. The other one feels guilty about imposing it. The Democrats.
Yeah, probably this. But, you know, at least you can work with the guilt and hope that at one point or another, the guilt will lead to something positive. Those are, you know, don't have this moral compass. we'll never get to this point. But again, I first to admit, maybe we are pushing this kind of optimism and hope, false hope, to places that it will never reach. I mean, having said that, when Trump says, during my time there were no wars, I think sometimes you have to be lucky in politics as much as smart, and luck goes a long way. He would keep saying that Putin invaded Ukraine because it was Biden and not him.
Right.
He will say Hamas would have never done it, but I'm not so sure we can substantiate it.
Right.
I think there were other factors playing into that. Maybe it was another factor, but not the factor.
Now, just to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, he claims he's the master negotiator. He can get things done. I remember when a former Irgun terrorist leader became the prime minister of Israel, Menachem Begin, and everybody said, you need a tough right-wing person in Israel to make peace with the Arabs. It's much easier. Rabin was more liberal, and he almost got there, but they assassinated him. But Menachem Begin, they said, look, that toughness is what allows Israel to say, I will sign the agreement with the Arabs and make peace. Is it possible that if we look at this not from a personal way of of feelings and emotion, but we look at some of these people that Trump is appointing, they're tough. They offer Israel a sense of security. Is it possible it might be easier for Israelis to accept a peace if Trump were to present it than they would from a guy like Biden, who they may perceive as weak?
I think it might have been the case in the 2016-2020 administration, the first term. I think because of what has happened over the last year, I think it's also because Netanyahu needed to form the current government, the very far right, and he doesn't have an alternative. I think, right. I mean, it's a scenario, but if you'll ask me what percentage I would put on this scenario, I hope it is a viable one, but I won't put much of, my hope on such a scenario. It's a very remote one. And because he can press Netanyahu, but the people that it will find very difficult to press Netanyahu depends on them not only to stay in power, but potentially also to derail his court case, are ideologically extreme, and they will always say, we don't care who is the president of the United States. We'll continue to press. They want annexation. They want the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza too, to agree with everything that they have in their grand plan of annexation and sovereignty, Israeli sovereignty, not only on the West Bank, but Gaza too.
Did the Democrats stop annexation? I mean, the settlements have grown probably faster under Democrats than under Republicans, or if not faster, almost at the same pace. We got twice as many settlements, twice as much land that's been annexed in parcels. To me, I don't see the difference between one party and the other party. One guy smiles and says they want to bring peace. The other guy, angrily with policy, says, I want to bring peace. I don't know. Who do you trust?
I think definitely if you ask Palestinians, I don't have to tell you, they trust no one, and why should they trust anyone? And as I mentioned, I'm in Brussels, and when you talk to the EU, I say exactly the same. This is not time for words anymore. We've done with words. We said so much about it. We know everything that we need to know. It's time for action. It's time to do things. And when I hear people, we have a plan, and if they do this, we'll give the money. And I think people in Gaza don't have time right now for someone to come with a plan. They need ceasefire now. They need humanitarian aid now. They need improvement on any aspect. I think also Israelis needs this. It doesn't help their cause one way or another. So as the Middle East implodes and we see the war in Lebanon is getting more entangled, or Israel is getting more entangled there. Everyone says that the ball now is in Iranian court, whether they retaliate to Israeli attack. At one point, we say enough of this, and the international community will intervene. I think it exposes something much deeper in the international community. The post-1945 collective security, I think, is officially dead. It can't prevent wars, and when they break out, it can't bring it to a quick end. So what we see, lingering conflict, lingering wars. So Ukraine, before we know it will be 3 years since the war in Ukraine started.
Right.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is forever. Ethiopia, Sudan, you name it. So there is no arbiter, there is no force in the international community that either is willing or capable, possibly that you need both, to end this conflict. So this goes to your point. Does it matter if those Democrats or Republicans, if there is no will, or they don't believe they have the capability? I think they have, but they're afraid of it. So what we are resorting always to manage conflict. Now, what happened even now in Gaza, we just managed the conflict, but in difference from before October 7, on a much higher level of violence,
right?
Which is not good for anyone.
Yeah, I want to go back to the very beginning when you said, hey, Trump is unpredictable. If there was a word that would describe him, maybe unpredictable might be that adjective. Couldn't that be an asset? Here's a president who comes in, or a president-elect, he appoints some of the most conservative pro-Israel people, and yet he has a son-in-law who is Orthodox Jewish, Jared Kushner, and he has a son-in-law who is Lebanese Christian, who's married to Tiffany, Michael Boulos. And Michael Boulos' father, Dr. Mossad Boulos, who is close to Trump, they organized, he worked with a group called Arab Americans for Trump. This is the first time I've actually seen Arab Americans working for Trump in the US. And when you look at the results, Trump probably got half of the Arab American vote. And Stein, who was Jewish, who called for a ceasefire, peace, 2 states, only got half of the other half, equal to what Harris got. And I'm thinking maybe Trump is in a better position to impose a peace, maybe that not everybody likes, but because he has the strength to hold Israel in place, and he can give the Arabs something that they can't seem to get themselves. What do you think of that scenario?
I think the problem with unpredictability, we as human beings like some level of certainty. When you sit in government, when you sit in any planning department, you would like to be able to plan ahead based on some certainties. And obviously, international affairs is full of uncertainties, and we never make decisions based on full information. Now, with unpredictability, depends if it goes in the way that you want to go, the unpredictability, or goes completely the opposite direction of this.
That's true.
If, the scenario that you described, he actually understands at the end of the day, I need to bang heads there, and I'm going to do that because I'm the president of the United States. I have all the power to do that. If I do that, the Europeans will join in, maybe even China and Russia, and khalas, I'm doing that. But this is a specific scenario. Then you ask yourself, why he appoints all these people into an administration that are such hawks and not pro-Israelis, but pro-very right-wing Israeli politics, including settlements. That's where I find it difficult to find the logic between the two. But I think one thing we can say for sure, there will be people coming and going in this administration probably within a year. It's not going to be
right
settled for 4 years. We know we've been there.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe he will adjust what he wants to do to the kind of people that he needs around him to support. And that's honestly only time will tell.
Now, I was looking at the president-elect's first term in office. The turnover in his cabinet was phenomenal. I covered Chicago City Hall when we had the first woman mayor, Jane Byrne. During her 4 years, in her first year in office, she published the picture of every cabinet member. I think it was 34 people for the city of Chicago. Within 6 months, 30 of them had been replaced with new faces. And that revolving door lasted 4 years. Trump may have the same tendency that he embraces people, he's emotional, he becomes friendly. Elon Musk today is his best friend. I don't know, will he be his best friend tomorrow? It could change. So in addition to unpredictability, you have a pattern, right? I mean, a tiger doesn't change his stripes. This guy, he may replace Rubio and Huckabee and Stefanik on the flip of a dime for some unknown reason. We have no idea.
Yeah, and I think you need level of stability in government, because this filters through to all the civil service, all the people that work underneath. If there is constant people coming and going, is the policy or that is the policy, and who should we follow if there is no stability? Under Biden, for better or for worse, depends if you like the policies, you don't like the policies, the same people were in the same position for 4 years. This creates some stability, and people at least know what's their brief. If you have 2-3 national security advisor, 2-3 secretary of state, chief of staff, all of this, it's create dangerous instability within the system, which I don't think how much it takes. Now you look at this character, there is volatility to them. There is no doubt about it. And whether it's Trump, whether it is Elon Musk, at certain point, when you have so many big personalities, whether one likes them or not, they are big personalities, you almost can predict that at one point or another they would clash. And the question, what the results of this clash? How it's also a think about the image outside the US. While in the US, the election, it was decisive. This is it. But people in Europe right now look at it with dread. What's the future holds for the next 4 years. They like the idea that there was stability, even if they didn't agree with the policies of Biden, they could at least expect what's going to happen next. And people like it.
They like predictability.
I think so. I think
yes.
I mean, there's so much excitement that you can take.
Now, let's ask about a major player, of course. For Israel, they wanted a desire to get the Saudi Arabia to sign a peace accord with Israel. And over the last year, Saudi had shown a willingness, obviously, to want to do that. But as that conflict has just worsened, they've made it very clear that they cannot do anything. And now they're even speaking much more strongly about Palestinian rights. They're seeing this go in a bad direction. Is that still a prize to the Israelis? I mean, don't the Israelis have to change their government if they want to bring this important country to the peace table? Can they do it without creating a Palestinian state?
Ray, my opinion, Israel needs to change the government, full stop. I mean, for everyone's sake. But look, actually, when we talk about normalization and we think about the UAE or Bahrain or Morocco, it was Saudi Arabia the first to offer this, to put it on the table, 22 years ago. And I think it's still the most viable option. Solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict the way that both sides are satisfied, and get normalization across the board. everywhere in the Middle East. So probably it won't happen with everyone. Now things change since then, but definitely Saudi Arabia and in other countries. So this has been on the table for more than 22 years. And I think this was always been the right approach. So we know that there were discussion about normalization over, the year or so before October 7. There is no way in the world, if Israel refuses to make concessions on the Palestinian issues, that normalization will be back on the table. And I think, and I think rightly so. We saw what happens when the Palestinian issue is not resolved. It's, again, some people, when you say that, the interpretation is almost like justifying what happened in October 7. Obviously not. No one will ever can justify something like this. But conflicts that you leave them to fester will catch you in all sorts and will lead certain people to do all sorts of things that then we need to actually to deal with the fallout of it, which is much worse. And Israel actually actively works for peace with the Palestinians. And the idea there is no partner, and Abu Mazen was ready to negotiate. Many people within the PLO, with the PA, ready to negotiate. You need sometimes to support your partner, and this is an asymmetric conflict. But again, back to the Saudi question, I think more than ever, it proved that their approach has been the right one, of peace agreement followed by full normalization.
Yeah, the Saudis, I think, have been very consistent. As you point out, they came up with a great plan. Now it's been 2 decades. Israel is the one that, since the collapse of the Oslo peace accords, has not moved forward. And I think that has a lot to do with the current government. Netanyahu has been the face of Israel for, 20 years consistently, and even 4 years before that, and another term that he had. He has been probably, I think, the longest serving prime minister in Israel. On one hand, you might say that there could be change. On the other hand, I wonder, is that going to be the future, that Israel will always be so rigid?
Israel needs change on so many levels. We see what Netanyahu is now continuously 15 years, as you say, 3.5 before that, 96, 99, is longest serving, more than David Ben-Gurion, who's founder of the country. He's a master manipulator. He understands that the Israeli political system and psyche in a way that no one knows better than him. And he managed to win election. The fact that he, considering what happened only a year ago, still prime minister, complete the colossal failure to defend Israel. I mean, I can't think about any leader, definitely in a democracy, that will survive in power, considering the big failure, and then blaming everyone. While at the same time, only next month he's supposed to give evidence in his corruption trial. So you think that even a Teflon politician at one point or another will, the Teflon won't work anymore, and it does. And I will be the first to admit, I don't always understand what is the appeal.
Do you think, just a few final questions, Yossi, and of course I appreciate it for our listeners out there, we're talking with Yossi Mekelberg. He's a senior consulting fellow at the Middle East and North Africa program at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, a visiting professor at the University of Roehampton, and a columnist with Arab News, who I read religiously because I enjoy his thinking. We're always happy to have him on the radio show. It sounds like the real problem, and I don't mean to say problem, but the real change has to come from Israel first before there's going to be a change in the Middle East. Do you believe that? I mean, they've taken out Hezbollah, the leadership, and it's a movement, though. They'll probably replace those leaders. They've taken out the Hamas leadership. Without peace, we're just going to get new leaders. If Israel doesn't change, can you have peace with the current Israeli government?
I don't think this current Israeli government is one that wants peace in the sense that we understand peace. They want capitulation, not peace. Now, you need a new government in Israel, but to be honest, Ray, they need a new leadership, among the Palestinians.
Yeah.
I think there should be also soul searching about what's the role of Hamas, renewing the PLO, new leadership on all levels. We found there is huge resentment in the West Bank, also in Gaza, against the leadership, the Palestinians. So it needs the two. Again, because it's an asymmetric conflict, when Israel it's proved now militarily, it's very strong. But I don't think socially, politically, it's as strong as it is military. It's one thing to take out the military of Hezbollah, Hamas, bombing Iran, but it needs to come with a strategy. What is the political aim? They can always find more Hamas militants. They can always find few, Hezbollah people. There is always somewhere in Iran that you can attack. Is this the way, living on the sword forever without actually complementing this? Okay, that's what military can achieve, but now we need to move into the diplomatic political sphere, and first and foremost with the Palestinians. I think only when Israel will recognize the Palestinian issue is not going anywhere. Whether they love it, both sides, they're going to live together side by side. And this is their decision right now, how they are going to do that. But can you do it when you have Ben-Gvir and Smotrich in government? Sadly not.
All right. Yossi, any final comments at all? We always appreciate your insight. Anything that I didn't ask you about that you feel is compelling, maybe that have they come up with the answer to the Middle East in Brussels?
That's the thing. Everyone tells, look at the United States, they should make the difference. And I think Europeans forget many times, the Middle East, it's on the doorstep of Europe. You are there, you're very far right now from the Middle East. Europe is here on the doorstep. If things happen in the Middle East, they affect immediately Europe. We saw it, for instance, with Syria and refugees. We know it with energy. So they can't always look and say, the Americans come and will save us. They need to be proactive, and not only in engagement, but being proactive. They have enough tools in their toolbox to use in order to push both sides towards the finishing line. The problem with Europe, when you need 27, 28 countries to have consensus on something, good luck with that.
All right. Yossi, listen, thank you again for joining us. I always appreciate talking with you. I learn a lot. I get great ideas from you for my column, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, it's always a pleasure.
All right, Yossi. All right, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines at 248-557-3300. That was Yossi Mekelberg, who I was interviewing in a pre-tape segment. This is live now, and usually I have two guests, but I wanted to give Yossi a little more time because I think you raised some good points. Trump is unpredictable. He has a revolving door on his cabinet. The people that he's appointing today may not last and may not be in office in 6 months, and he may appoint new people. So is it worth getting angry with his appointments, or is it smarter to engage Trump? We didn't do that the first time when he was president. The Arab community boycotted Trump. Or is it smarter, more strategic to engage him and convince him to do what needs to be done? We can talk about all that. And also, I want to talk about Jill Stein, what she did do, what she didn't do. I was disappointed in the performance of Arab American voters. They certainly were not responsible for Trump winning. They were not responsible for Harris losing. Trump actually won this with the popular vote. winning all of the 7 swing states. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take your calls at 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. We'll be right back right after these messages.
The U.S. Arab Radio Network is the largest Arab and Muslim radio network in America, broadcasting throughout the Midwest region Monday through Friday on WNZK AM 690. U.S. Arab Radio features Arabic and English language programming on every topic, from health, food, and culture to government, politics, and legal issues. Listen live to U.S. Arab Radio in Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, and Windsor, Canada on WNZK AM 690. And in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia on WDMV 700 AM. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. So join us every day on the U.S. Arab Radio Network and check out our website at www.arabradio.us. With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics, according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Radio Show here at WNZK AM 690. Our number is 248-557-3300. We are live here on radio at WNZK. And if you want to call in and share some of your thoughts, I'd love to hear what you have to say. 248-557-3300. I really think that the big mistake the Arab community made in Trump's first term was to boycott him, not engage him, not talk to him. And they basically, it's like I compare politics to sports. And if you're going to compete with somebody, you have to be on the field competing with them. You can't just walk away and say, well, that's the way we're going to beat you. No, you have to beat them on the field. But the Arab community walked off the field and left the field to the Israelis. And Trump did what he did. He negotiated and he talked with the people who were still on the field, and the Arab community lost out. I'm hoping they don't do that this time. I hope they're smart enough, less emotional, and more strategic to go ahead and do what needs to be done, because Trump is unpredictable. He can be manipulated. He can be worked with. You can work with him. There's a group called Arab Americans for Trump, led by Dr. Bashar Ababa, a smart guy. He has the support of Donald Trump's daughter's husband, Michael Bullis, and her husband's father-in-law, Dr. Mossad Bullis. Now, whether they actually are smart enough and organized enough and trained enough in politics to actually help represent the voice of the Arabs, I'm not quite sure. I like them. I think they're making a mistake because they've gone into deep silence right now after the election. I think that's a sign of weakness. 248-557-3300. Let's take our final break, and you'll still have a few minutes if you want to call in. I'm going to tell you what I think about the performance of Dr. Jill Stein. I was very disappointed. She's a good person. She had a terrible campaign. She didn't understand public relations. She didn't understand how to put together a press release. These are simple things that every Arab American should understand, but we don't. And that's always the cause of our problems. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back. Our final break right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you. Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most. And make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Radio Show. Let's go right to the phones at 248-557-3300. We got Dave on hold. Dave, thank you for holding on the phones there. What do you think of the Stein campaign? What do you think of the possibilities with Trump?
Well, I am very happy. He got the Congress, the Senate, and the presidential. I think for Middle East, he is better than the Democrats. The Democrats, they want to destroy all the religion in the state. I don't care what's going on with the guy. He's talking sometime nonsense, but hey, economic. Our life in America was better 4 years before the Trump time. Look what happened to us. They destroyed the country. How you want me to support the Camilla and the Sloppy Joe? That's why we are Dearborn Heights and Hamtramck and all Chaldean and Assyrian support the Trump because we need to bring the face back to the school and to our society.
Dave, I agree with you. I think that Harris made a big mistake. She talked about illegal aliens, and she didn't do a very good job with immigration. She talked about all these other political issues, but what she didn't talk was about what the voters wanted, the economy. She didn't talk about stifling the illegal immigrants from coming into this country would take resources away from you and I. Trump talked about the issues. She did not.
Look, the interest is 7 point something. And the Trump time was 2.9. I buy the house in the time of the Trump was 2.9.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
That's why we need a Trump. We need businessmen to come to White House, not some politician. They can bluff us and talk nonsense.
Well, Trump does, as a Republican, he does represent the Arab values more because Arab and Chaldeans, non-Arab Christians from the Middle East, we're conservative. We're family values. Those are the things we support. Dave, listen, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it, buddy. You have a good day.
For the Muslims, for the Christian, for the Jew, for the Buddha, Trump is better.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for calling. 248-557-3300. We got a couple minutes left if you want to call in and share your opinion I have to be honest, I was disappointed with Jill Stein. She only got 628,000 votes, which was just under, I think, around 0.5%. She needed 5%. So in truth, the Arab community did not come through with the only strategy to change the two-party system to a three-party system. If she had gotten those 5% of the vote, which would have been about almost 7 million votes, that was far. The Arabs and Muslims could have given her those votes along with a number of other progressives, but we didn't. Instead, I think, as Dave pointed out, we voted for Trump, the majority of Arabs and Middle East Christians, and a lot of Muslims, because Trump identified with the issues that we identify as a community. He identifies with us. He supported our positions on religion, prayer in schools, conservative values. That's what the Arab community has always been. He hasn't, there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the Middle East. Is there any difference? Does anybody out there believe that there's a difference? I don't think so. There is no difference in the Middle East when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats smile and lie to us. Anthony Blinken was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to the Gaza conflict. He did nothing to stop the conflict. He was more pro-Israel than I think they claim Trump is. Trump is very conservative. The Republicans are very pro-Israel, but at least I know they're not lying to me. So I'm comfortable taking a chance again with Trump this time. But I think it's very important that the Arab American community be smart. Don't be emotional the way we always are. Be smart. Do the right thing. Get your message out. Talk with the Trump administration. Do it with respect. There is one principle that former President Ronald Reagan made very clear. There is no such thing as 100% in American politics. Nobody will ever, not even Jill Stein didn't match all the 100% of everything that we believed in. No candidate will ever be 100% representing what we believe in. If there's 70%, which was the Reagan number, he said if you agree with 70%, that was more than enough. 70% is a lot. If we get 80%, that's great. Maybe even 90%. But there's always going to be something we disagree with. 248-557-3300. If I disagree with a few things, but I agree with 80% of what somebody does, I would be a fool to fight that person and not try to get what I need done for the community. And I think Arab Americans, we need to wake up from our slumber, wake up from our dysfunction, wake up from some of our poor leaders who drive by emotion. They use emotion to anger and whip up the community. You want to go to a Hefla or sing Ella Del Ona? Yeah, all the Arabs will come out. You want to vote to change policy? You'll see less than 5% of them come out. 0.5% came out. 0.5% of the vote went for Jill Stein. Harris got the other half of that 50%. People still voted for Harris, but the majority of Arabs and Muslims voted for Donald Trump. And I think that as a community, we need to come together. We need to be smart. We need to do the right thing. We need to change how we engage politics and stop yelling and screaming and stop being upset and emotional. I can't stop the Gaza war. You cannot stop the Gaza war as individuals. Your anger certainly is not going to, and your emotion certainly are not going to stop the Gaza war. You won't stop the war in Lebanon. You won't stop that from expanding to other Arab countries. But what you can do is change politics. There's a great woman who tried to run for legislature in Illinois. She was the victim of self-defeating Arab politics in Illinois. Suzanne Akras, phenomenal person. Her husband is Zahar Sahlul, who is the founder of Med Global, which does so much for refugees and displaced people. She pointed out, and I agree, because I've been in politics 45 years, covering it, engaged in it, working in it, that power in American politics does not start at the top. That's not where you fight the war. You want to fight the war, you start at the bottom. Congratulations, Amr Zahar, for winning that school seat in the Dearborn area. Congratulations, Dan, because starting at that level is how we bring change to the Arab American community. That's where power comes from. You change your neighbor. You build a coalition with your community. You get the communities together to understand what needs to be done, to recognize what's right. And then you elect a congressperson and you elect more congresspeople. You don't defeat a congressperson who doesn't support your view, who you never supported and who the community doesn't support, but who got elected because the other side, our cousins, were smart enough to put their money behind that person to do what we failed to do. And I'm going to tell you, we can sit there and wallow in our suffering, wallow in our failure all we want, but I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to keep educating our community. I'm going to keep telling them, you need to get better. We need to get our message out. We need to be smarter. We need to talk in a strategic way. We need to identify the issues that are important. We have to stop allowing our emotions from destroying our ability to change policies here in the United States. I am not in Gaza. If I were in Gaza, it might be a different world. If I were in the West Bank, it might be a different world. If I were in Beirut, it would be a different world. I would change. I do things differently. But we're here in the United States. We're here in Dearborn. We're in Michigan. We're in Chicago. We're Illinois. We're spread out over many of these states, and yet we can't seem to get our act together. We allow emotion to undercut us. We allow emotion and anger to block us. We don't support each other. You know how hard it is for Layla to struggle to keep this radio show on the air? We have the worst media of any ethnic group in the United States. And when I say worst, I mean the least effective. We got several great newspapers, the Yemeni Times, but the Arab American News, published weekly, is the only full-time weekly newspaper in the country that is professional. Why is that? Why don't we have more? Why don't we have daily newspapers like our cousins, the Jewish community? Why don't we have a stronger, robust, strong radio program that doesn't have to fight for every minute that they need to get our information across? That's why we're having a problem. You want to change politics? Change your mind. Change yourself. Change your attitude. Change how you think. Change what you do in this country. Bring change to the Arab community and make a difference. If you don't bring change to the Arab community, we will continue to be where we've been. And I'm telling you, I'm in my 70s, early 70s. My mother's from Bethlehem. That's why I still look like I'm in my 50s. But I'm telling you, you need to change. If you don't change, all you're going to do is experience continued suffering, continued failure, and continued loss. I'm Ray Hanania. I want to thank you for listening to the Ray Hanania Radio Show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News at arabnews.com. You read my columns at rayhanania.com. Go there and be smart and educate yourself. Have a great week. We will talk to you next Thursday. Bye-bye, everybody.